I love you.
Yo, folk, ladies and men. Glad to have you here again. So, please, won't you come on in and sit with us here on the couch? I am the Green Traveler from Gorsh.
And I'm the Faceless Leon. I have no face. And this is a podcast about movies and TV. And today we got a Trilogy Triumvirate. Triumvirate? I know how to spell it. I don't know how to say it.
Triumvirate, yeah. It's possibly a very unlikely to happen again Trilogy Triumvirate, because this is a Trilogy Triumvirate that was published in 1 year at the same time.
This is unless it becomes a trend for the streaming services to do it.
Yeah.
Which I'd be down for it if they're good. I mean, this one was very promising, I think, if that does become a trend.
I agree with you. I think it's a very rock solid film, and I think it could pave the way for a new kind of storytelling, because I mean, it's kind of just like Lord of the Rings, you know, how Lord of the Rings told one giant story, but they did it one per year, you know. It's like they filmed them all back to back, but they released it year after year. And Netflix is just like, nah, we're doing them all right now, so you can watch this, like, I don't know what it comes to, a 3.5 hour adventure, 4.5 hour adventure.
The first two are like pretty close to an hour and a half, so those two are like 3 hours, and then the second one is a 2-hour movie, so 5.
About 5 hour adventure. Wow. Yeah. And I spread it across 3 days. I had to. I just don't have the schedule to. Right. Yeah. But the fact that I could just come back to it the very next day, that was a very pleasing thing, because it got me through the work day. Because, you know, I'd be sitting there at work being like, maybe it was like a dull spell, you know, we weren't having a lot of members or whatever coming in. And I'm just like, I can't wait to get home and watch Fear Street. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It is enjoyable. I don't know if I should say that I was surprised, but it was pleasant.
I will say I was surprised.
It was better than I expected. And, like, I just saw it sitting there, you know, on Netflix. And I think I mentioned it to you and was like, we should try this. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, I remember somebody at work had mentioned it, and like it just kind of went in 1 year and out the other. They weren't talking to me specifically; they were just somebody else had watched the movies, and they were talking together. And it's like all I heard was like Fear Street, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool," but like I didn't listen to what was going on. I just kind of drifted into my own space. But yeah, when you brought it up, I was like, "Well, that'd be perfect for fucking Halloween,"
right?
And I'm happy to say I was surprised, because one, they're all directed by Leah Janayak. She's only done like two projects before this, I think. Like, I've never heard of her, and I'm so happy to have finally heard of her, because now you better fucking believe I'm going out to check those other 2 projects, because this is amazing.
This is great. I mean, so well put together. Like, just okay. The only thing that I really didn't. We reviewed the whole thing in 4 minutes already, but
I mean, there's so much more to divulge into, of course.
Definitely. So the only thing that I did not like was the tune in next time thing at the end. That definitely made it feel more like TV movie than it could have been. I mean, like even if it was like a post credit scene, that would have been better. But it was always, it really felt like the end of an anime episode. That's what it really felt like.
And I'll be honest, I skipped that, because thankfully they put that a little bit after the credits. So like they'll have like a few credits, and then they'll have that little mid, like, tune in next time. But and then the way Netflix is set up is very nice. Once the credits start happening, even if there is a credit scene, it's like, hey, you could skip this.
Right.
And I always went back. I would always skip the intros when they're just like, previously on Fear Street, skip. You know, it's like, coming up next week on Fear... Nope, not doing it. Yeah, it's just like, it's easy to skip, and I think skipping it helps it a lot, because, I watched the first few seconds of the first movies next time, and they were giving away way too much.
Yeah. Well, so that's another thing that I didn't dislike about the movie, because the way that they played with it and we got so much more information in that second movie. Mm-hmm. But we already know the story of the second movie by the time it starts. So that was another thing that could have been a detriment, but was not, I don't think.
You know how the story ends, but you don't know any of the meat and potatoes of it, which is nice. It makes for a little bit more of an interesting, like, how's this going to happen? Mm-hmm. And when we get to the third one, I'll go further into this, but it's like where you knew where the story was going with the second one, you know, it didn't detriment it because it's like, okay, I know the ending because they've already told me and kind of showed me the ending, but I don't know how it's going to get there. With the third one, I knew piece by piece what was going to happen just because I've watched a lot of movies. And so, by the time we got to the third one, I knew what was going to happen. And I do consider it a tiny bit of a detriment for the third one. And we'll go further into it when we get there. But like, it didn't hurt the experience. But, you know, but the fact that they were setting up something kind of textbook. I mean, it's R.L. Stine. Like, it's all based off R.L. Stine's Fear Street novels.
Yeah, why don't you talk about the novels a little bit? Because I never read a single one.
Yeah, so I don't really remember the Fear Street ones too well. I remember Goosebumps like crazy.
Right. I read some Goosebumps.
Yeah, when I was, I think, 4, because I started reading when I was like late 2, early 3. I've been told I was 2 years old when I was starting to read, but that just doesn't make sense to me. But but it's possible. I don't know. I always remember reading. There's not a time in my life I've ever remember anybody teaching me how to read. I've always known it.
Maybe Gorshins have an instinct level.
It could be, man.
Language intelligence.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there sucking on a bottle and reading a book on the bathtub or on the potty. But like the first, like one of the first novels, it wasn't the first novels, but the first like novels that I got super into was Goosebumps. I loved horror. Ever since I was a kid, I loved horror. And the thing I loved about Goosebumps was they always ended in like a cliffhanger, you know. It was always kind of fun to like get all the way to the end, and then it has this like terrible cliffhanger. It's like, oh, what happened? Oh no. And then it's my imagination filling in the ending, which is kind of fun. I mean, it's also a bit of a ripoff on the writer's part, but still, it's kind of fun.
So was Fear Street also an anthology, or did it focus on one town or one group of people?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know.
You don't remember? Yeah. I'm going to try a quick look.
I was going to say, I remember that they were a little bit more young adulty. They were, when I was a kid, I was reading just Goosebumps, and then as I got older, that's when, like, the librarian was like, maybe you would like Fear Street. It's a little bit of a more mature read. It's like, okay, sure. Ate the shit out of that, too.
Right. So the first one was in 89.
As in set in 89 or published in 89?
It was published in 89. Well, given that all the main characters have different names, I'm gonna say that it's an anthology. And holy shit, he wrote a lot of them. 51 of them.
Yeah, he wrote a shit ton of these.
And then, like, there were several spin-off series that he wrote, too.
Yeah. Yeah, but Goosebumps was more of my thing, and that's where you get a lot of that style, of the R.L. Stine style. And there is some of that bleeds into this show, but not a lot. There's not, you know, outside of the storytelling and like what they're kind of trying to set up, like it's kind of like a teen drama horror film, horror film threesome, I guess, horror film trilogy. But like outside of that, it really just kind of feels like its own standalone thing. Like it doesn't, you know, if you remove the Fear Street title, I wouldn't have put R.L. Stine's name to this.
No.
Because it doesn't have a lot of that zing to it. And I honestly think that's a good thing. There is one very obvious R.L. Stine thing that I kind of guessed in the first movie. I will say, let me think of how to word this without giving spoilers. There is a character whose name is like, let's say it's Fun. His name is Fun.
Okay.
And in R.L. Stine, you typically always know that it's like, oh, if his name is Fun, he must be bad, or he must be evil.
He's not going to be fun.
Yeah, he's not going to be fun. And so it's like it's kind of like that low hanging, you know, fruit kind of like, oh, we need a good name for our villain. Ooh, here's a good name.
Yeah.
Anyways, but like that was like one big thing was like when they mentioned this character and he's just like, "Hi, I'm Mr. This last name." I'm like, "Oh, you're probably the villain, aren't you?" It was something they tried to bury for far too long that was kind of very obvious, given that R.L. Stine's name was slightly attached to this. Like, I don't think he had anything to do with this.
Well, maybe it was based off of one of the novels.
Probably, yeah.
And they thought that they could do it in, 3 movies, and they did. So, I just thought... I recalled you saying that you read a couple, and I thought maybe you would know more. But that's okay.
I just read a couple. That's all that meant.
Let's go back to when we were 2. You were just, you hadn't quite learned how to read yet. 1994.
Well, I was born in 1994.
So Fear Street, the first part is set in 1994, just so that you could conveniently not have cell phones. That's the only reason.
It's true. And to get that 90s nostalgia, which there's very little of. Of course.
Yes. But it's coming in, though, man. I feel like there's a lot more things set in the 90s now, and it's like, okay. I guess.
They're trying. They're moving on from the 80s nostalgia. They're like, well, we've milked that dry. Let's move on to the 90s and the frosted tips.
So, we start off in the mall, right? Because where does any great teen horror start off in? The mall.
Exactly.
And there's these 2 kids, and they're kind of just closing up shop and stuff. But a lot of, scary noises keep on going on. But then, all of a sudden, you got this skull-masked guy... and he's killing people. And when he goes and he kills Heather, this poor defenseless, I think it's Heather, I don't give a crap actually, because they die.
Right. They're a 5-minute introduction.
Yes. You find out that it was actually her friend that she was hanging out with earlier, and he seemed all well and good. So
I gotta say that intro is really fucking solid for that first film.
I think so.
Yeah, I watched it and it was like watching Scream all over again. It was a good slasher intro. And I'm just like, all right, okay.
Right, yeah, they definitely do the Scream thing with killing off the introductory perspective.
Right. And like but where it twists, where it goes, awry, where it changes the formula is a cop does shoot the killer right then and there.
Right. Yes.
And it's like, oh, we're not going to be following this guy. I thought they were setting up a killer here. No, it goes a little darker than that.
It sure does.
Yeah, from there we jump off into Dina. Was that her name? Dina?
Yes, Dina is our heroine.
Yes.
Kiana Madeira. I hope I pronounced her name right. She is awesome, and she plays in the Shady Side band, but she quit, but she decided to go anyway to see Sam, her old boo thing who moved to Sunnyvale, only to find out that she's macking on this guy, this Argo football player named Pete. And I was trying to find Sam in the cast list here. There we go. Samantha Fraser, played by Olivia Scott Welch. I have to say that I was really honestly kind of surprised about the whole acting of the cast. I thought they did a pretty good job, but in this role in this series, and we'll talk about more of that later, in this role in the series, I thought that Olivia was a little flat.
Yeah.
Honestly. When she was playing... So, okay, this is spoilers. Later, she does get possessed. I'll say that. And that acting, I thought, was pretty decent. But when she was just being Sam, it just fell a little flat for me. But other than that, I thought everyone's acting was pretty up there.
I agree with you on Sam. I feel like her character, or maybe the actor also, I don't want to speculate on her thoughts, but her character kind of shifts a lot in the first film, Because, you know, as you said, Sam is macking on that, whatever his name, football guy, Pete.
Yeah,
and, and later on, there's, you know, a lot of contention, a lot of riled up, you know, teen angst and hormones get involved. There's a car accident. There's a lot of, there's some shit that goes down. And Sam and Dina are just constantly, like, fighting each other. It's like, you know, it's like, I loved you and you're being mean to me. And, like, you know, just teen stuff, you know, breakup just happened. They're fighting a lot. And then, you know, Monster comes into play and immediately they're just like, okay, we're in love again. Let's survive.
Right. Yeah. It happens really fast. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really weird. I feel like that might have applied to Sam's flatness a little bit because her character has the biggest switch. Dina, it still feels natural that she would want to protect and, you know, be with Sam because she still does love Sam. She's still, you know, she's not angry at Sam for...
And I don't think that Sam doesn't love her anymore. I do think that it's implied pretty well at the end of the series that it was Sam's mother who is trying to keep them apart. Right. So she was probably just trying to be an obedient child and meet some boy so that she could conform. But anyhow, there's a lot about that in this movie, which I applaud it for, too. There's a lot of good commentary.
The whole trilogy.
Yeah, the whole series, yeah, for sure.
Which is like, I really enjoyed that aspect of this, of these films, because it was really fun to, because you have in the, you know, the mid-90s and their view on it.
Right.
And it's just, you know, how they handle it is really interesting and really fun to watch. And then they go all the way back in the third film to 1666. And it's like, oh my Jesus, how it develops, how it evolves or devolves is just, you know, it's very kind of horrifying. Right. And I love that they brought that in to be a very central aspect of how they brought homophobia specifically and as a specific aspect of this trilogy.
It's not as big of a aspect of the second movie.
Yeah, not really.
1978, but it doesn't have to be a very strong LGBTQ message. I think it's good. I think I got all the letters in there. That acronyms are really hard for me.
I think you got it. You missed the plus, but I think that was all right.
Okay. I'm sorry.
But to go further into the first film, as you mentioned, there are two rivaling towns. There's two sister towns. There's Sunnyvale and Shadyside.
Yep.
I think.
Yep, okay. That's right. And most of our characters are from Shadyside, at least the heroes.
And it is a foretold historic thing, a very, you know, bold, adventuring statement to say that Sunnyside is always sunny. It's always great. Right. It's always blooming. Right. Economy's great. People are happy.
$1 million houses.
Exactly. Beautiful days. And Shadyside is, I think I said Sunnyside, Sunnyvale, but Shadyside is the home of all serial killers ever. Not really. Not all of them. Not all of them, but
it's a psychopath sink pit.
Yeah, I think they call it the serial killer capital of America. You know, it bursts a lot of these people who just go out and just wreak havoc. And, you know, maybe you would put two and two together and think that something fucked up's there. But who knows?
So basically,
it takes a high schooler to do that.
Ryan isn't just the last name in this ongoing list of people.
Yeah, an all-new list of killers. And I don't really remember what gets Dina... Oh, because at the football game, Dina sees Sam macking on the guy, they fight.
Right.
And then when they're on the bus ride back home, when Dina is at least, Sam and the guy that she was with come up in their car and are like harassing the bus a little bit.
And they're wearing the mask that the killer was wearing.
That's
just like the night before.
Yeah. That was also a very fun thing in this first film because, again, it's like a teen drama in a way. And just the lack of, or I don't know how to say it, the callousness of everybody in these towns. Because they're so hardened, they're so desensitized to murder.
Right.
That, like, and there's this huge overarching mythology that there's a witch. It's like there was a witch of Shady Side, and she's Sarah the reason Fear. There's all these serial killers because that's right, Sarah Fear. That's a good name too. I love that name. Spelled F-I-E-R.
That's right.
Fear. And but yeah, she was murdered back in the 1600s, and ever since then, Shady Side has been producing serial killers. And it's like all these people, all the citizens, everybody, they just like, they love this mythology that this witch, or maybe they loathe it too, and there's a lot that loathe it, but the high schoolers at least just have a fucking heyday with it.
Right. It's kind of gross, and like...
It is. It very much is.
And Dina comments on how gross it is, even though her best friends are like kind of the main perpetrators. I believe it's Kate and Simon are her two friends that are tagging along with her brother Josh. Kate, played by Julia Raywald. Simon, played by Fred Hetchinger. And Josh, played by Benjamin Flores Jr. And I really like Josh. He's got a big crush on Kate, and that's kind of fun. And Kate and Simon sell drugs to make extra money to try to get out of the Shady Side.
And she's the valedictorian, and Simon is the employee of the month for like the last 2 years at the mall. They go to the grocery store. He works at the grocery store, and he's also constantly talking about like different things that are on sale at the store too. Oh man, I liked all three of them, but I really did love Josh. Like Benjamin Flores Jr. was a lot of fun. Like I attached to him immediately, and I was just like, all right, if there's anyone I want to survive this whole all three of these films, I keep calling them threesomes, and I feel like that's just us. But like, if there's anybody I want to survive this whole film trilogy here, it was Josh, because he's just a fucking nerd, and I love him. Like,
he's the perfect nerd.
He's just online chatting with some lady.
He's onto the shit, because I think a couple years previous, a friend of his was killed in one of these murders. So he is online talking to these people who are like, okay, the curse is real, guys, and we got to figure out what's going on. And he's got like, one of those murder walls in his room with articles and shit. I don't think there's the red string, but
there might have been, honestly.
There might have been. I couldn't recall. But anyhow, he's the one when all of a sudden, bum, bum, bum. I don't know if I should spoil this. We can edit it if you don't think I should. The Skull Mask Killer returns and tries to get him. And he's like, dude, look at all this stuff. Especially because Simon almost gets killed by this lady who was dead years and years ago.
Right.
Look, this is her. I got an article with her picture on it.
And she kills with a razor blade, and she sings, and that's exactly what she was doing that night.
Yeah.
All these serial killers coming back to life. It's creepy.
Yeah. It's messed up, and that is pretty much the premise of the first one.
I'd forgotten to say this earlier, was the reason Dina gets involved is when the kids are harassing them behind the bus. Right. She tosses a water tank out at them on accident, but she tosses it out there, and the car swerves, has an accident, and at the end of the accident, when Sam gets out of the car, she sees the witch. She has a vision or whatever. Yes. And I will say that is why Dina gets involved, because when these killers start coming back, they're gunning for them. For some reason, they don't know why. They're all gunning for Dina, for Sam, for Josh. And so it's just like, okay, we gotta try to band together and figure out what's going on. And Josh has the lockdown on it.
He does. He knows everything. Always follow your nerdy little brothers.
Yes.
No shit.
If they play D&D, they're good at this.
Yes.
And that's probably not true, honestly. If they play like us.
At the very least, they might be problem solvers.
That's true.
If they play like us, oh my god, last night we were playing a game that neither of us had played before, and I had heard about it, but when they expressed it with the acronym DCC, I had no idea. But Dungeon Crawler Classics, it's a lot of fun. If you're a tabletop fan, you probably heard about it because you're probably more old school than us. I don't know. Who knows? Fuck it. If you're a nerd and you haven't heard about it, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. A lot of character death. It's fun
and fairly simple. You don't have to spend a lot of time like role playing certain characters. You have a group of characters, so it's really cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Thanks for DMing our friend. I won't mention your name in case you don't want to do that. But thanks.
Not a sponsor. Dungeon Crawler Classics. But there is a nice little like Stranger Things D&D feel to these films, you know. And I think a lot of that does come from Josh in the first film, just because he is, you know, when he's chatting with that girl online, he's using like very old timey like English, and he's like, "My queen, I will shall be done." You know, it's adorable and it's hilarious and cute, and I fucking love him.
So, should we go into closing statements on this film?
Yeah. I don't want to give too much away. So yes, I'm okay with that. I give the first one 3 stars. It's very enjoyable slasher film with a bit of a not really, but a bit of a supernaturally twist. It doesn't have too much of a supernaturally twist in this one, but there is, you know, it's mostly a slasher for a while, and then there's a little bit of that introduced in the end, and I fucking loved it. It's a lot of fun. The characters are very callous. They really do set up the teen drama feel. Like I can't remember who I was talking to, but I called it a CW horror film. And but a much better done than CW. Yeah. It's above that quality, but it feels on that level of teen drama. And it was just, it really hooked me. It was so good. And the directing by Lee Janiak, like, amazing. Like, I'm so excited to see more from her. And I get to see more from her in the next 2 films. So,
that's right. Yeah. I give it a face. There's absolutely no reason not to watch this movie. It's great. I think that, I'm going to say it up front, I think I like the other 2 better, though there are reasons why I think one of them is less strong as a film than this one. So, this one is a very strong film, well put together, and I love how it leads into the second one, because obviously they knew they were doing this from the very beginning.
Right.
And also just the way that they make them 3 completely different films by setting them in different time periods. It's a great first step. And yeah, there was some 90s nostalgia for me in there. But I really didn't care for that. This one, I didn't really feel like that was such an important part of this particular movie. It was more of like just very much a classic feel. There's definitely some tropes in here and some cliches, but they also play with them a little bit, and just all around the performances and where the story leads, all good stuff. Go watch the movie.
Hell yeah. And let's go back in time to part 2, 1978.
But before we do that, I'm getting a little thirsty.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Go get yourself some water.
I wanted a soda pop, but that's okay.
We'll get a soda pop. Don't get a soda pop.
Okay.
I'm going to drink my bougie sparkling water.
All right, I'll be back. Alrighty.
Oh, you're back. Hello.
Hello, I'm back. Oh, are we back though?
We're back. You're back?
That was fast. Literally just sat my ass on the ass on the cheeks.
Oh, we're not back? You're back. Now we're back.
Okay, we're back.
You know, we didn't even mention it in the first half of this. We were stumbling our way through. But this is our 100th episode.
It is our 100th episode. Isn't that great, guys? Come on, potatoes. Put it up. Put your spuds together.
Woo, woo. Yeah, we've done 100 of these dumb things, and I fucking love it. Here's to 100 more.
So, I think that there might be a couple of spoilers that we mention, or you know what, we could just skip the whole C. Berman thing and just talk about the story that's in 1978.
Yeah, I think it's mostly... I mean, you've already mentioned that Sam gets possessed.
Right.
And so I think it's fair to say that part 2 is basically just furthering on that storyline. How do we get her unpossessed? Right. How do we free Sam? And, Dina and Josh, they go and find somebody they believe might help them. Somebody who survived the Camp Nightwing murders.
Right.
And first off, Nightwing is my all-time favorite DC comic book character. And so Camp Nightwing and a whole fucking murder story around it. That's great. I love it for that alone. Like, that's amazing.
I thought you might have something to say about that. So, in this movie, they are regaled a tale of this Camp Nightwing. And we follow Ziggy and her sister, Sydney. They don't get along so well because Sydney, I think it's Sydney, isn't it?
Something like that. Or Cindy.
There, yeah, Sydney. Cindy.
Yeah.
And she's played by Emily Rudd, and Ziggy is played by Sadie Sink, who is in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So, that's fun. And this also has very much a Stranger Things feel to it. It just feels a little bit earlier. Like it should.
Right. It definitely feels the 70s.
So anyhow, Cindy is doing her best to get out of Shadyside because, things are just fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And so she has cleaned up her act. She used to be a bit of a troublemaker, you find out. But like a lot of Shady-siders, they have a reputation, at least according to the Sunny Veilers. Right. And this camp also is a funnel of both of them. So they play on that rivalry in the camp on purpose.
Yeah.
They have this color war thing, which is a big event. Like they do like capture the flag and other things between the two towns. And
the Shady-siders are the Shady-side witches.
Yeah, they're the Shady-side witches. And what did they make them, like the Sunnyvale Knights or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
One of the like counselors on the Sunnyvale side is even like, we've never lost a color war. Oh, but Sydney and Ziggy, they're not getting along because Ziggy's like, you changed, man.
Yeah.
And everyone talks like that in this movie. Just so
she's not happy at all that her sister is becoming straight edge. Yeah. And she's like, I'm just now. And it's kind of adorable, too, at the same time, because, my brother and I, we were 5 years apart. And by the time that, he was getting older and I was still into, like, younger things, I was very much like Sadie's character in this, where she was just like, I just want to do shit. Like, I want to rebel and have fun and do all these kind of fun teenager things. And you're over here, like, not swearing whatso-fucking-ever. Like, your boyfriend has to go miles to kiss you. Like, I definitely got the sibling vibe from both of them because it was just cute and adorable.
Speaking of her boyfriend, Tommy Slater, played by McCabe Sly. So, Tommy, I don't know if we should give it away. I mean, it is a first movie reveal, is the thing.
Yeah. I think it's okay to give it away because we're not giving away the whole thing.
No, we're not.
It's kind of known up front. As you said, it's in the first movie.
So, Sweet Tommy, as referred to by Sydney, he becomes an axe murderer. Like, honestly, like, Tommy... Man, he must be stacked or something because it's like Michael and Jason had a baby. Really, mostly it's Jason.
It's mostly,
They even get a sack, a flour sack on his head, like the second movie. after a certain point. And that was the part that I was looking for. Because they slowly built his costume throughout the movie, which is the best. So he's featured in the first movie as one of the murderers that chases them. And they slowly build up this costume, and it was great. Because it was the 2 days that I had to wait to watch the second part was long enough for me to forget the name Tommy Slater until the movie, until he put, I think, that flannel on. And I was like, oh, damn it.
You're like, oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because, he was already becoming possessed, because that's what happens. We already discussed that. So, he was already becoming possessed, so I knew something was going to happen. I was like, oh, duh, he's the guy with the flour sack. So now the whole movie, I was just waiting for him to get the flour sack. And I gotta say, I accidentally looked away, and I missed the part, man. If he either put it on or if it fell on him. I don't know.
No, I have to put up a spoiler wall because it was one of the best parts of the movie. Because I too was waiting for it, and how he gets it is amazing. Because he is I think he's choking Sadie, Ziggy's character. I think he's choking her, and she's trying to struggle and get away. It could also be Sydney. I can't remember which. It's one of the Cindy. It's one of the two of them. But they just reach up for anything they can grab, and they grab a sack and they just shove it on his head and choke him with it.
Okay.
And it kind of works at first so that they can get out of it. And then he immediately just turns around and goes after them again, but now he's got a fucking sack on his head.
Yes.
It just made him more creepy.
What makes him more eerie, I think more eerie than Michael, is that there's no eye holes. Yeah. He's just looking through the canvas. Yeah. Or not, whatever.
Yeah, he doesn't really need sight, it seems. Yeah, he's just going. Yeah.
So that's Tommy. We also have some old friends that are no longer friends of Cindy. I think Alice was one of their names. Yes, Alice and Arnie. And they're a couple, and they're also supposed to be counselors, but they're really just trying to get high the whole time. Which, that fits the time period. Hell, that fits now.
Yeah, they're the kids who are just trying to get high and have sex. They're those two kids.
Yes, definitely. And they find this cave network under the camp, and that's where a lot of the new information that you get in this film about this curse comes from. So one thing I want to talk about is the rhyme. I don't have the rhyme in my head, but it's the legend of Sarah Fear. The main thing is that she cut off her hand and offered it to the devil. So you find out more about that. That's what the rhyme says.
Yeah, they go into the rhyme a bit. They go into the backstory. Again, even though we know the ending, how it furthers the story. Yeah. It is also its own story. It's great. It's so well done.
It's a good prequel sequel.
Yeah, exactly. It was really well done. I was because as you said, going in, I thought well, we know what the fuck's gonna happen at Camp Nightwings. This is gonna be it's gonna be interesting to watch. But I was but it's just gonna be a slasher. It's gonna be whatever. Right. It felt weird to me, but it wasn't. It did. Because the characters are learning as we go, and it's informing the characters of the first film who are hearing the story. Right. And so it was so well done. Heavy applause on the second one for that.
Definitely, because it could have been what you just said. It could have just been it's a prequel that they tried to work into a sequel. But they were very successful at it. So congrats to that. A lot of cool stuff going on with also the nurse character, Nurse Mary Lane, played by Jordana Spiro. She's Ruby Lane, the other serial killer's mom. So she's been investigating it, and they learned stuff from her too. I just wanted to mention her because I thought she was interesting, even though she was only in the film for a very short amount of time.
I think it's kind of sad because even though their last names were Lane, and they even mentioned that her daughter was hooked into the serial killer thing, I don't think I pieced it together that she was the mom of that serial killer until you mentioned it.
Well, I think it was a little more explicit. You must have just missed it.
I was just being dumb. It's very hard for me to like retain knowledge when it happens. Right, sure.
So there are a lot of children who die in this movie. So if that is something that you're into.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, let's be honest. A camp horror story, like there's a lot of them out there, and there's not a lot of them that are good.
No.
And easily, by far, the best camp horror film I've seen. Oh, it was so entertaining to watch a bunch of children get slaughtered, let me tell you.
Particularly, I wanted to mention Jeremy, played by Dylan Gage. He was this nerdy kid, which, you know, I say with endearment, but dear God, those kids were letting him have it, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. They were indeed.
They were. But anyways, I definitely identified with him a little bit because I was definitely him until I was like, I don't know, 11 or 12. And then all of a sudden I was like just this huge person.
Without a face.
Without a face, didn't have any idea how to use their huge body. A lot of good acting all around again. I think we should move on to closing statements for this one too.
Let's move on to closing statements, yes.
Did I go first last time? No, you did. I'll go first.
Yeah.
Why not? I'll give this one another face. I'm more willing... I don't think it quite gets a face and a half still, but I do think I will go ahead and say that I liked it better than the previous one. Just because, like, I wasn't expecting it to build on the lore so well.
Yeah.
And I also, I don't know, I kind of liked the characters that they had just a little bit more than the 90s characters. I'm not sure why, but it did a very good job of emulating the classic campsite horror movie.
Right.
And it also felt a little bit like Scooby-Doo and Stranger Things at the same time.
Right, it did have that a bit of Scooby-Doo in there. There's a lot of good personality here in this one. And I agree with everything else you said too. I give it 3.5 stars. Like how they furthered the story just wowed me. Because I was expecting it to just get kind of stale, mundane slasher, and then we'll come back with the third one. But no, it went above and beyond, so hell yeah.
Hell yeah. There's one more movie to talk about.
Exactly. On to part 3. We step further back in time to 1666.
A big jump.
Yeah, I think to set it up, because I don't want to give too much away from the last two films. All we will say is there is an experience at the end of the second movie,
right,
where Dina is sent back in time, kind of like a vision. She has like this vision of what occurred back in the life of Sarah Fear. She is in the body of Sarah Fear, witnessing what happened back in 1666.
She has slipped into the literal shoes, or whatever passed for shoes, back in 1666.
Clogs.
Sarah Fear. Clogs. She's got her muddy clogs on. And they try to do some like original pronunciation things. I kind of like the accent choices that most of them made. Having done a production in the original pronunciation, I don't think they quite got it, but honestly, the original pronunciation that is kind of hard to understand if you go that hardcore with it. And also, it is a lot of guesswork, so I'm not going to say, like, I am a purist and they didn't do it right.
Right. I feel like they sat down, watched The Witch, and then Lee Janiak was like, all right, I want us to do this, but it's for Netflix and it has to be understandable.
Right. Yes. That is how it felt. But I will say that they all did a very good job of making it sound like they were from a similar place, I'll say. You know, sure, there was a couple outliers, but nothing was terrible. at all. Very good accent work. Good job, everybody. Oh, also, it's an ensemble cast. They take all the people from the first 2 movies, and they make up the people of this village. Is the village called Union or Shadyside?
I honestly don't know. I thought it was Union, I guess it could have been also called Shadyside. But no, I thought it was when it split into the 2.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
But this is the original settlement, which is where the camp is in the second movie.
And with everybody playing like their old ancestors and everything, it's kind of a lot of fun because a lot of them have different personalities. A lot of them are very just different people. But one thing that is still certain was that the character that Sam is playing and the character that Dean and I are playing, Sam Fear and whoever Samantha's ancestor was, I can't think of her.
Dina is playing Sarah Fear, and I'm looking. Okay, Samantha Fraser, Olivia Scott Welsh. I know I just mentioned her earlier. She's playing Hannah Miller, and Hannah Miller is so much better than Samantha Fraser.
Yeah, I really loved Hannah Miller, but the thing that stays connected throughout all 3 films was that their characters are in love.
Yes,
and that is what's going on here. Is Sarah Fear and Hannah? You said
Hannah Miller. Yep,
Hannah Miller. Yeah, they are quietly in love. You know, they've had a few moments. You know, a couple of stolen kisses, but back in 1666, that was the death sentence.
Yes, a death sentence, exactly. And you know, they could have very well, because half of this movie is set in 1994. I will say that up front.
Right.
Like they had an opportunity to just be like, oh, that's why Sarah Fear was killed. But they don't do that. They do, I think, a great job of telling what this story is.
Yeah.
Man, it's really hard to talk about because I don't want to give away hardly any of it.
Yeah, I don't either. They do a good job at building up the legend of a witch.
Right.
You know, without you know, forcing her to be a villain in her own film like this. You know, it's definitely
the Crucible.
Yeah,
it's the Crucible meets actual witchcraft. No, meets the witch. Yeah. The Crucible and the witch kind of come together. But
yeah, and it's really well told. It's so very hard to talk about it without spoiling. But everything that they're trying to tell is kind of obvious.
Yes.
So it's like I feel like when you get to the end of the second movie, you know all of the beats of what's going to happen in the third movie. And so it's just like I want to talk about that because it just felt very obvious to me, but it's all huge spoilers, you know?
Right. So I do want to talk about, I will try to be vague. You said there's one character with a very obvious name and they have ancestors in this episode, we'll say.
Right.
I figured with a name like that they were going to have some nefarious involvement. However, I did not guess because I thought it was too obvious that they would be the main big bad. So I actually was kind of surprised when that happened.
And I don't think they make a lot of sense when they're undercover as like part of the town. Okay. Because a lot of their actions further bring further question onto themselves.
Right.
And so it was very weird because as I was watching it, I was like, okay, maybe they're not the bad guy because this film, this character is going very much out of their way to get themselves further into trouble if they were the bad guy.
Right.
And yet that is the case. Like they bring about their own destiny.
So if we're going to talk about, I kind of want to talk about the curse a little bit. It's really hard. There's so many cool elements to the curse too. I think they did a really good job of expressing the magic of how all that works. Because what was traded for what was gained honestly seems like a pretty small gain. Like for the amount of payment. So magic is costly in this world, and I think that's really cool.
And the villains are greedy as fuck.
Yes.
And selfish. Like, yes. Oh my god.
Yeah, and what this movie does for the other two movies is also fantastic. Like, once you get to the ending, it's like, oh shit, all this shit is all wrapped in together, and it's a very good closing chapter. The second half, I liked a little less.
The second half of the movie?
The second half of the movie, yeah. I think it makes it gives it less strength than the other two, because it really is a fourth part. Like, it's necessary to close it all together, but it really could have been a fourth movie, but I think 3 movies just makes more sense.
And it's like we got to wrap it up, so let's kill the big bad.
Right.
And
they also would have had to come up with another hour of material to make either of them a full-length movie.
Right. So, I can agree. It's definitely a weird switch, and I like the first half a lot more. It doesn't hurt it too much, though. Like, even though it's very obvious what's going to happen, it's still very entertaining to watch it all unravel. And as you said, it wraps up the whole trilogy really well, which, you know, for a series, it's really hard to have a good ending. It's really hard to bring a solid end to something that's gone on for a long time. And again, I know this all dropped in the same day, but it's like a 5-hour experience. So when you get to the 5th hour, you kind of want it to culminate in something that's very worthwhile. And I think it does a really good job at that. Like, it's a fun ending, and it's not as horrifying as I would have liked it to be, but it's still a damn good ending, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, especially, like I said, because of what it does for the other 2 movies.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of my closing statement on it, because it's very hard to like talk it without spoiling everything. Sadly, I give it 3 stars. I'll say that.
I like that.
Yeah, it is a step down from the second one, so I guess obviously that makes the second one my favorite of the 3. No surprise there. It was the second one was just tons of fucking fun. It has some really damn good kills.
It does.
Yeah, and this one just took a step down in that it's 2 different stories crammed together, and not crammed in a poor way. It's really well built together, but it's you know, they're shoved together for 2 hours. And like as you said, it should have been part 3 and part 4 if they could have made it happen somehow.
I think this 3 is just a better number, and that 4th part probably wouldn't have been as strong because it's the weaker half of the movie.
Yeah, so, it's the wrap up.
Yeah,
but it's still incredibly worthwhile, and the series, the trilogy overall, just like the aspects of lesbianism and like homophobia and all of that stuff that's involved, how we view witches, the teen drama of it, like it is such a fun and worthwhile trilogy. Like I highly recommend going out and watching it, especially for Halloween. Like it's a great one for that time.
Even though it was written by R.L. Stine, it's not. I wouldn't say it's really necessarily family friendly. You know, you can watch it. I mean, if you got like teenagers, sure, but younger kids. I mean, it's a horror movie. It's not a kid's horror movie either, even though
some of the kills are very graphic.
Yeah, don't get confused on that. But this movie, this might be controversial since I already said I think it's a weaker movie than the other 2. But I'm going to give this movie a face and a half. Just because I love how it capped off the whole fucking story. And I am a sucker, honestly, for that time period when it is a commentary on the Puritan lifestyle. Like, if you go and watch, like, you know, old Pilgrim movies, that shit's boring as hell. But, like, this and The Vitch, it's a very, very, very good setting for horror. It works very well. I really like it. Just that half a face is just for the first half of this movie.
Right.
I loved it. Even though I did predict a lot of it, I thought it was just such a good story.
And that serial killer in the first half, even though they're not really focused on a lot, there's just kind of like a bit of a background aspect to what's going on. Right. That was scary. That was really good. And not in like a horrifying way. It's just like when you're in the church where this stuff's happening and you're seeing what's happened, it's disturbing. Like, you're just like, man.
Oh, man. It made me worry about Josh.
Right?
Yeah.
Man.
Anyhow, good series. I give the whole series a face and a half. I do think as a standalone movie, the second one's probably the best one, so we can give that the winner if you'd like. We can mutually say that.
Give Camp Nightwing the gold stamp.
The gold stamp, but face and a half on this movie that is strangely less strong than the other two. I know.
Your mind works in mysterious ways.
It's just the one I like the most.
Yeah, it's fair. And I would say I would give the whole trilogy a 3.5. The first and the third get a 3 stars. The second gets a 3.5. But as a whole product, it's just a well put together package. Like Lee Janiak just did a great fucking job. So
100% agree. Face and a half stamp on the whole trilogy. That is the trilogy triumvirate right there. It was triumphant.
Ba-ba-da. Indeed it was. And that's indeed it is. And I have been the Green Traveler from Gorsh.
And I am the Faceless Leon. Very happy to have watched these films, so go check him out. Safe travel and good night. Green and Faceless on the Couch is a proud production of FictionWorks 19. If you like the show, please show your support by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Like, follow, subscribe, wherever you might listen. We also now have a Patreon account. If you feel so inclined to support us in a financial manner, please become a patron by visiting patreon.com/greenandfaceless. You can also find more information about us on our Facebook account or on the FictionWorks 19 Instagram account. Thank you so much for listening.